woodcraft, helping you make woodwork.
To pretend. This is a great tool, probably one of your better tools when you're caning. A dull blade is a dangerous blade. So I have blades of a pack of 100 in them. You just can't have too sharp a razor blade in this situation. I definitely would not recommend a dull razor blade. You're going to hurt yourself, you're going to scar up the chair, you're going to miss, you're going to slip. It's going to go terribly wrong and you're going to get scratches everywhere. So good advice, brand new razors, always. And I'm just going to run it right along the edge, kind of going to have a little bit of an angle. So I'm cutting into the side of the chair, not into the rib, or straight down. If I'm cutting straight down, then I'm cutting it at the very bottom of the channel instead of the very top of the channel. So I have about a 45-degree angle, and I'm just going to run it right across the top of the channel on the outer part of the rib. And it's very simple to cut. And again, I'm going to make a mess. This is kind of messy. I would rather take 3 passes than push so hard on one, because the harder you push, the more you're likely to slip and make a mistake. So I would much rather just take a couple passes, be a little patient, which is not in my vocabulary, patience, and try not to gouge up the rest of the chair. And I just come back and do fine tuning if I feel like I have to. So this is going to give you a good example of after and during. I don't know if you guys had much of a chance to see me be able to get this groove in here with the cane, so you're more than welcome to come up and take a look at it. At this point, it's all about cosmetic. Now your structure is gone or is set. Your ribs are drying. The glue generally takes about an hour to completely set up on the blue label of the Type Bond. I like to let them sit overnight. Inner glue, as you all know, takes longer to dry than surface glue. So the next day, and then everything's dry. So the next day, I'm going to come back, or later that evening, and I'm going to do some puttying. You know, every corner, if you get a gouge on the edge, putty it up. And then you can come back and touch up that putty, and you'll never know that you missed on that 45-degree angle. When you are doing one continuous rib, which is the rounded corners, you always want to put your seam in the back, because that's less likely that your eye's going to catch it in the back. And you want to do angle cuts. So 40, well, let me show you with a piece, if I have a piece here. Butt cuts, which are straight on, generally shrink and pull away. So a straight on cut, straight butts come together. That's a butt cut. So you just have that seam. What'll happen is when it's drying and whatnot, and through the years, they tend to come apart and you'll see a gap. If you do a 45 opposite of each other, which I'm sure there's a technical term for that, I'm not really big on technical terms, then as it pulls apart, it still has product or pieces that it's lined up against. So if they go together like this and they start pulling apart, they're still touching, so your eye's being tricked. Once you create a gap, your eye will always notice it. But if you've got an overlap and a gap, it'll trick your eye, and it's not something you'll notice very often. So when you bring the two pieces together, you always want to 45 them like this and bring them together that way, rather than the butt cut, which is straight on to straight on. It's all about tricking your eye. Lots of different tricks in the woodworking world to trick your eye, or in the restoration world at least. So at this time you can stain it, finish the chair, touch it up, whatever you need to do.
I missed when you first started. Did you wet down the chair before you start putting the wet
No, I
paint
did
on?
not.
So the chair is going to be drawing the moisture off the
Chair is always going to be dry. The most important thing, and I'm glad you said something, because the most important thing in any job is how you start it. When you're cleaning out that rib, you really need to be thorough getting that glue out of there. It's going to take hours. It's going to kill your hands. You're going to hate the job. But if you don't thoroughly do
wet
it,
down or nothing to.
nope.
Okay.
They have glue softeners out there. I've never found one that worked. At times I've put a Dremel to it, my carver, and a couple of different tips to help me release that glue. Most of the time, that tool right there will do it. It's just, again, a hand tool, and it's work, but it does a very good job. Like I was telling him, mine's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Mine's just a chisel that's narrow, but it's pretty much the same concept. I didn't even know they had these until I started working at Woodcrafter. I'd have bought one. I stole my dad's chisel, so that's how I got mine.
I was watching you dig that out of there and wondering if one of the old hand router planes wouldn't do a good job on something like that.
It would, if you can get it the right.
You wouldn't want to do it on a finished chair
No.
because it scarred the finish.
Yeah, but if you put tape down, if you were to tape it, you would still be able to work it. Yeah, I tape a lot of things when I don't want to bugger up a finish. And I'll use the blue tape and then come back with duct tape or Gorilla Tape, something stouter over the top of that.
That's what I was saying, is the refinishing, the last one that I put a cane in, I put the masking tape on.
Yeah.
Blue tape hadn't been invented yet,
No,
so that
but
shows you when
masking
it-
tape, same
But
concept.
masking tape on it, the blue tape would be fantastic, to hold your moisture so you don't scar it and
Yes.
everything.
Actually, the green is better than the blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, the green is really good. Yeah, there's a chemical thing that's going on with the green. It actually will not stick. I can't remember how that all works, but it will not stick where you don't want it to stick. And when you peel it off, if you let your paint dry, if you're painting, it won't tear your paint, because the paint never really dries on the tape.
Now, when you're doing a set of chairs, in my case, it was 4 tall chairs. How do you keep the caning not discoloring? I mean, it all came from the same piece, but 2 of them discolored from so that the chairs turned out that there were 4 chairs done. The caning.
How much
changed
time
color.
did you have in between each chair?
Well, I mean, we're talking 3 weeks probably to do the 4 chairs, because I did it between working full time. But
Well, I wouldn't get it wet until I'm about to use it.
so the more moisture.
You just want to keep it out of the moisture. Yeah, if you're in a really humid area, you definitely want to try and keep it in a cool spot. You don't want to freeze it though, because then you're going to create moisture when it
I don't have
thaws.
any heat in my shop yet.
Yeah.
Hint.
Yeah, you really don't want to freeze it. That's because when you freeze something, it actually pulls moisture in and freezes it, and when it thaws, it releases the moisture back into what you're using. So freezing is very bad. Cool is good. Cool, dry. Yeah, it's kind of odd that it was discolored that fast.
What I was wondering is the more often that you get it wet and the more that you work it, does it change
No.
color of the cane?
Because it's all going to dry uniform.
Okay.
It's all going to dry, every bit.
Because I was thinking it just took me so long, and I wet it down so many times, and I worked it and reworked it and everything, that I was thinking that maybe.
If your water is dirty, Your cane will be dirty.
Oh, God.
I used green
just
water
used
one
the darker
time.
stain- I used the
Yeah, you
darker
do.
stain on it to make them all equal.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying,
I had green water one time, and I had green cane.
I don't
So-
know if it applies to cane or not, but I remember somebody claiming that if they use water with chlorine in it,
Yeah,
it discolored their wood.
bleaches it. It bleaches
bleaches
it. Yes, very much so. I agree with that. Which bleached wood is all good, but if it's not consistent, it's blotchy.
Not unless you
Yeah,
didn't intend to
and
bleach
it's not a
gotta
good
bleach
thing.
the whole thing.
Yeah, at that time, to make it consistent or sand the heck out of it. I did bring a chair that my parents did this chair probably 20 years ago, and it's completely done top and bottom to kind of give you a good look at how things look when they're completely finished.
What did they finish the,
This cane has been stained.
just stained, but not no paraffin or anything on top of it?
Yeah, lacquer.
There was lacquer.
There is lacquer. You always want to seal it somehow, because again, you don't want all of the moisture to be released, but you want it to breathe. Any wood product, any natural fiber has to breathe somewhere. So you finish the top just like you do the rest of the wood, and the underside you just flat leave alone. That's where it's going to breathe. And it will last longer if it is both sealed and breathable than it will if you completely seal top and bottom. It's going to get brittle and break within a couple of years. If you give wood a chance to breathe somewhere, that's why our antiques are hundreds of years old. They didn't completely seal them. So, and cane is no different. It's a natural fiber. It's just very much like wood in a plant form. So it needs to breathe, but it can be
Where you
stained.
can see your splice down there is separated out.
Again, and my folks went over the top. You know, I tend to go side to side. It doesn't matter. If I'd have been there watching him learning in that time instead of on a phone, I'd have probably done it the same way he did it. But that's very much. There's nothing that you can't do with this ribbed caning. It'll make every corner. And this is a great example of the corners being rounded, and it's one continuous motion. There's only one splice. Where up here is a great example of having, your cut edges. And you can box cut those, or you can mortise cut them however you want. It's all about you. They
See,
don't.
the overall craftsmanship of the design is nice and tight. and
It
everything
is.
else, And you don't look at the corners.
No, you don't. That's not where your eye goes.
That's where-
Your eye
if
goes to that.
If it had a crease in it or something, then you'd be drawing.
What your eye is going to catch the first right off the bat, and I'll warn you, is if you're off kilt that much, your eye's going to catch that, and that will drive you nuts to the day you die. So, I think the most important part is to make sure this is straight, because I learned that the hard way. And come the second day of looking at it, I was tearing it down and redoing it. I just couldn't live with it. So straight up and down, or the perfect diagonal angle is acceptable, but a niche off doesn't fly. Although with rushing, there's a lot of gimmies there. You can make mistakes and get through them okay. With caning, you pretty much don't want to make the mistakes, because it will. If you have one little ripple, you'll notice it. You'll feel it, and it'll tear through quite rapidly. So it is really important to get it all flat and no big ripples. And by doing this system that I showed you today, you really should be ripple free always. You tighten it like you do a drum, front to back, side to side. Work it around consistently. Get it all down, then bring in your rib.